Hello guys, welcome to the channel. I am standing right next to an off-road legend. To the left of me is a 1997 Mitsubishi Pajero Evolution. This car was a Ford Bronco Raptor of its time. When it was first introduced, it was purposefully designed to conquer the class that it was racing in a very well-known and grueling 9,000-mile off-road course called Dakar Race. And in the 22 years of this race being held, this car won 12 of the top positions, more than any other make and model. This car is basically a race car SUV, and another thing that is unique to this car is that homologation special. As usual, we're going to give you an overview of this vehicle from the rich history of this vehicle and how Mitsubishi came about building this off-road legend. We're also going to be talking about the engine, suspension, braking, wheels. We're also going to give you a tour of the interior of this vehicle, and we're going to go over the styling of this vehicle. And towards the end, we're going to be taking this vehicle for a little drive and share that experience with you guys. If you're new to this channel, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. That's one of the ways that gets our channel growing, and I hope you like this episode. I borrowed this Mitsubishi Pajero Evolution from Full Throttle Auto Studio, and their selection of very unique cars is available to be rented out for TV commercial or movies, and their information is displayed on the bottom. Alright guys, now let's talk a little bit more about this Mitsubishi Pajero Evolution. But before doing so, I want to tell you a little bit about the history of Mitsubishi and how they came about making the model Pajero. Mitsubishi Pajero in the United States, it's called Mitsubishi Montero, and in few other markets, it's called Mitsubishi Shogun. But it is essentially the same car. Mitsubishi for many years felt that it was being left out of the game as its Japanese competitors, namely Toyota with its Land Cruiser and Nissan with the Patrol, were in the off-road scene. So in the 1970s, they started coming out with a prototype of Mitsubishi Pajero. The engineers at Mitsubishi built several prototypes until 1981, which the first generation of Mitsubishi Pajero was officially unveiled. And it offered a couple of engine choices of 4-cylinder or 6-cylinder, but they were not that impressive. And it did offer an array of features that was actually innovative for its time. A few years later, there was a very famous off-road race called the Dakar Race that actually started in Paris, France, and it ended in Dakar, Senegal, but it went through the African Sahara. This race was very grueling, infamous. There was many accidents and even deaths throughout the 22 years of this race being held. But this 9,000-mile race was one of those main races that if you were in the off-road scene, you had to have a car that could enter it and win one of these races. The second generation of Mitsubishi Pajero was unveiled in 1991, and it was offered as a 2-door hardtop or a 2-door canvas top, or basically a convertible, and a 4-door semi-high roof wagon or 4-door high roof wagon, which I think is pretty funky names. This generation of Pajero offered several groundbreaking options. These features included the Super Select 4-wheel drive system that was very special because it combined full and part-time 4-wheel drive system. It also featured electronic shock absorbers. The driver could select soft, medium, or hard based on road conditions, and multi-mode ABS, which offered ABS system while the car was in 4-wheel drive mode. It also had independent rear suspension, which not a lot of cars at the time had. And even when you're driving up to 50 miles an hour, you could switch the car from 2-wheel drive all the way to 4-wheel drive without stopping the car. As I mentioned, this car is homologation special, and that makes the story of this car even more interesting. Few examples of the homologation specials are Mercedes-Benz 190e Evolution 2 and Subaru Impreza 22B STI. In order for Mitsubishi to enter Pajero Evolution into the T2 series of Dakar Rally, they had to make a certain number of the street version of this Pajero Evolution available to the public. And Mitsubishi did just that. So they took a 2-door metal top version of the second generation of Pajero, and they went in town with it. They adopted a 4-corner multi-link independent suspension. They had a reinforced frame and skid plate, and the body panels are lightweight aluminum. Bumpers both in the front and the rear have a approach and departure angles that are higher. They installed double fog lights. Mitsubishi widened the track in the front by 5 inches, and the rear was also widened by 4.3 inches, and that's why you see this massive flares in the front and rear. And they stuffed a powerful V6 3.5-liter engine inside of this car, and this car just did phenomenal. It won the top 4 places in the T2 category, and it was even the overall winner of the whole race, which means it even beat the T3, which was a modified version of a prototype Approximately 2,500 examples of this car was built between 1997, 98, and 99, and Mitsubishi never exported any of them to the US market. And the reason that you see this car here in the United States is because this car belongs to the 25-year exempt law, which means it doesn't have to meet a lot of the emissions and safety standards. The combination of the rich history of this car, being a homologation special, and winning so many races makes this car even more desirable. I'm sure more of these Pajero Evos will get imported to United States because now it's 25 years has passed since their inception, but it's just a really moving experience for a car enthusiast like myself and a lot of people out there that will probably never get a chance to see one of these cars in person. Moving on and talking about what actually powers this Mitsubishi Pajero Evolution. This car comes with a 3.5 liter V6 dual overhead cam MyVec engine. That's Mitsubishi innovative valve timing electronic control system, which is Mitsubishi's version of variable valve timing, and it has dual intake plenums. And Mitsubishi actually advertised this car as having only 276 horsepower, but this is because of the gentleman's agreement that various Japanese automakers were doing in the 1990s to limit the powers on their cars so that there was not as many accidents in Japanese roads. But the actual figures of the horsepower of this car is about 300 horsepower, and it also makes about 258 pound-feet of torque. All of this power is made into ground via two choices of transmission. First, they offer manual transmissions, which are very rare, and the other choice, which is more desirable, and Mitsubishi actually used it in their Dakar racing, is a 5-speed shiftable automatic transmission, the 2-speed transfer case. Now you have four choices when it comes to the four-wheel drive system of this car. You have the 2H, which is your basic two-wheel drive for your normal driving. Then you have the 4H, which is for slippery roads or rainy roads. Then you have a 4H with locking center differential, which is meant for you when you're driving in sand or mud with basically a lot of these tougher off-road obstacles. And you also have a 4L with locking center differential, which is meant for if you're going on really deep incline or decline on a mountain, or if you're in a swamp or something like that, that it requires you to go at a lower speed, but it also gives you that option to lock the center differential. And the car weighs about 4,300 pounds, and the 0-60 of this car is anywhere from 6.4 seconds all the way to 7.9 seconds, depending on the road condition. An average fuel economy of this car is about 15.2 miles per gallon. All right, guys, now let's talk a little bit more about the wheels, brakes, and suspension on this Pajero Evolution. This car comes with 16-inch wheels that need a little bit of refurbishing, and by the time you watch this video, they're going to be already taken care of. The wheels are wrapped on some meaty Falcon tires. They're 265 in width, both in the front and in the rear. The braking system is basic, normal. There's nothing special about the braking system. It's a 4-wheel disc brakes. But what's interesting about this car, it has Torsen slip differential in the front and in the rear, and with that locking center differential, you actually have 3 locking center differential in a 4-wheel drive system, which is very rare of a car of this time. The only other car that I can think of is Mercedes-Benz G-Class, and maybe even Hummer offers that. And this car does come with 4-corner independent suspension, and in the rear you receive the multi-link long travel suspension setup. With the front having double wishbone suspension, it makes this car even more special. And this is one of the reasons why this car was able to drive at such high speeds on sand or mud, or the different variable grueling off-road courses in Dakar, and conquer all these races. Not only this car has the most wins in Dakar racing, but it has the most second wins and the most third wins, which is very phenomenal in the 22 years of Dakar racing being held. All right, guys, now let's talk about the exterior styling of this Mitsubishi Pajero Evolution. Right from the get-go, this car is absolutely wild, and it's so cool to look at. There are a couple of things that gets your attention when you look at the front of this car. Definitely the functional hood scoop that you see on this car is one of those, and you got this little mirror on the side. Since this car is right-hand drive, the mirror actually does come in handy. Then you got this carbon fiber surrounding the front grille of this car, and right here you have the MyVec with the mesh grille. Right here is the word Evolution. And then one of the things that I really like about this is this double fog lights that you see on this car. That is so cool. Moving from the double fog lights to the bottom of the bumper, you have more openings to cool down the engine of this car, and they're also heavy duty mesh grille. And then right below that is this nice functional skid plates, and you have a hook on the either side of the skid plate for towing purposes. Moving on the side, I really love looking at these widened fender flares. They're so wild. And how the front and rear flares meet the door is absolutely insane. And I love looking at the side vents on the front fender flares of this car with this little amber light on here. Moving on to the side, and you got this extended side sill with the word Evolution right above it that connects the front to rear fender flares. And both the driver and side mirrors actually have, again, more of that carbon fiber that is actually faded and cracked a little bit over the years. And this is one of my most favorite things, these wind deflectors that you see on these windows. Both the driver and passenger have them. They're about 3 or 4 inches extended out of the window, and they're big, and then they have the word Pajero stamped on it as well. Moving on to the back side of this car, obviously you got the fendered rear flares with the gas cap actually accommodating to it. It even has a nice curvature to it right here, which is actually pretty cool. Then you have standard side window. Then when you're about to approach the back of the car, you see 2 things that strike you. One of them is this antenna that is both on driver's side and passenger side. There's a dual antenna. It's very odd. It's adjustable. You can move it to different positions. And then it's this beginning of this rear spoiler that starts from the roof, then it kind of curves up. It looks like a little cat ears or whatnot when you look at it from a different angle, but it's extremely strange. Then it comes down, it ends right on top of the taillights, and you have a very, very cool looking taillight. And I really love looking the back of this car because you can see how strange and odd looking the rear spoiler of this car is. And then you have a full-size spare with a cover, kind of looks like a Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon, with the word Pajero and obviously Mitsubishi emblem. On the left side of this full-size spare, you have the word Mitsubishi, and on this little carbon fiber trim piece, you have the word Pajero, and underneath that, you have the word Evolution. So when you're looking at this car, you cannot be confused what this car is. And in order to open the rear door or the third door, this car is technically a 3-door version of the Pajero. You got to kind of lift it up a little bit, and it does open up, and you have actually a lot of room over here. You even have a door handle right here, which I think is pretty cool. It's kind of reminiscent of the Mercedes-Benz G-Class. Rear wiper blade, obviously you can see the full-size spare tire, but you do have a decent amount of room that you actually can put stuff in here. So Mitsubishi did a pretty good job with even spacing in this car. And you can fold these rear seats, gives you a little bit more room. Actually, pretty nice, pretty nice. Then on the back of this car, right underneath this full-size spare, you actually have a little heavy-duty tow hook as well. Moving it on underneath the rear bumper of this car, you see the gas tank of this car, but it does have a nice protective shield around it, so it doesn't get punctured. And to the right of that, you see the exhaust coming out, and we're gonna see how it actually sounds like. Take a listen. Moving on and talking about the interior of this car, it has the pretty normal standard interior of the mid 1990s Japanese car. However, one of the things that strikes you the most are these Recaro seats. Yes, you do indeed have an authentic Recaro seats in the front, and they have this little interesting pattern to them. They are actually very comfortable. Remember, Mitsubishi had to make these seats comfortable because this car can go at really, really high jumps. So the comfort of driver was actually high on their list. That's why they made these Recaro seats that are sporty, but yet they're comfortable. And the seats are actually manually adjustable as well. The door panels are very basic. You have the power windows and power window lock, but you have a sticker right here that actually tells you about how to operate the Super Select 4-wheel drive system, which is actually pretty cool. It's in Japanese, and you got more stickers in Japanese here. You also have here, and in addition to having some in the engine bay area. Another thing to notice on the dashboard, you have 3 gauges. One of them is a compass, the other one is an oil pressure, and the last one is a battery voltage. This car does come with a lot of carbon fiber trims around the central vents, side vents, around the instrument cluster, also around the climate control area and around the cassette. And even back of the mirror does have some carbon fiber on it, which goes with the theme on the outside, as you saw on the side view mirrors, the front grille, and even on the back area where it says that, where it displays the word Pajero. So that's actually interesting. The outer pieces of carbon fiber are, so you have aged, cracked. These interior pieces are actually in pretty good shape. A few luxury notes that you can note about this car is that although it was basically a race car SUV, so you think it would be kind of bare bones, but it does have a digital climate control that actually works it, and it still does have its factory Mitsubishi cassette tape, which is actually pretty cool. Another neat thing about this car is that it does have driver's side power folding mirrors. It doesn't have it for passenger, it only has it for driver's side power folding mirrors, which is actually pretty neat. So here's how it works, and then that's how you get it back out. Pretty neat. Another thing to note is the sun visors actually have a little extension. This was common in a lot of Japanese cars. Also, the sun visors do not come with a mirror, but they do come with this little strap that you can put some forms and papers and whatnot inside of it. One thing I'm not a big fan of is the steering wheel. There is nothing special about it, but then again, this car was built in 1997. I was expecting it to be a little bit more race inspired. As far as getting in the back of this Pajero Evolution, it's actually not an easy thing to do, and I'm gonna try to do it while I'm holding this camera. It is a very, very tight squeeze, but once you get in, you definitely have a nice amount of headroom. You have a decent amount of space. It's only 2 passengers, obviously. When the front passenger or the driver bring their seat backwards, the rear passengers actually do have some room. You got some amenities. You got a speaker system in the back. Interesting that you have an ashtray, and you have a little pocket right here that you can put some papers or put a little snack in there or something like that. And each of the rear seats have their own armrest with a little cup holder neatly placed inside of it. All right, driving this Mitsubishi Pajero Evolution. Being inside of this car is a lifetime opportunity for me and anybody that gets the chance to be in one of these 2,500 examples of this car. I mean, it's so nice, it's so cool, it's so wide. I like my view. Their seating position is high up. Actually, I can compare it to Mercedes G-Wagon that we recently tested. I like how you can definitely see the outline of the hood scoop, and you got that little cute mirror on the passenger side, and it's just amazing. This particular example has a little bit over 140,000 miles on it, but it's actually running smooth. When you're going on the corners, you can definitely feel there's something going on with the back of the car. You think it might be trying to lose grip, but it's actually not. This is how this suspension is set up. It has a similar feeling to rear wheel steering. It's comfortable. The seats are definitely comfortable. The view and position on the road is really good because of this high seating position. It's by no means fast compared to contemporary cars, but it was very fast for the 90s. So this is talking about the late 90s, and this car all has about 300 horsepower, technically 276 horsepower because of that gentleman's agreement. But it's nice, and the tachometer actually starts a red line at 7,000 RPM. So that means this car wants to go, wants to be given gas. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be doing that because this car is a little bit older. It's a vintage example. It's been loaned to me, so I'm just enjoying the drive, and you know, I want the audience also to know how it feels like. But we're not going to be driving it as it had when it was like brand new. Now we're going to drive this Pajero Evolution on the highway and give it a little bit of gas and see what she has. It is about 9 o'clock in the morning. This is a famous freeway. This is a 405 freeway in Orange County, in Huntington Beach, and then we're heading towards Long Beach. Now we're gonna give this car some gas. Okay, it does have some power to it, but it's not very, very fast. I mean, the 0-60 of this car, the best they got was anywhere from 6.5 seconds to the high 7s. But, you know, for its time, it was a very good and respectable acceleration. The car weighs about 4,400 pounds. I mean, you got all these, you know, off-road suspension, you got all these skid plates and things that are protecting the undercarriage of the car, so you don't expect the car to be very fast. And having a top speed of 130 miles per hour, it's actually very admirable. I cannot find any fault with this car. One thing I can tell you that it confused me when I first got this car is the position of the turn signal stock and the wiper blade stock is opposite. So when I was trying to go to left or right, I was mistakenly pressing down on the wiper blade stock. Another thing that you get confused at the beginning is that this car is in kilometers per hour, not miles per hour. So every speed that you're going, first of all, you have to be careful not to go over, but also you have to factor that you're going in kilometers. So right now we're doing 100 kilometers, which is about 60 miles per hour. I'm so glad that I got to drive a very, very exclusive, probably about 40 or 50 examples that have been imported to the United States of this beautiful and legendary Pajero Evolution. I mean, this car when it came out was a Ford Bronco Raptor of its time. You know, 3 lock-in differentials, really, really nice and dependable. 4-wheel drive system with that super nice suspension, electronically controlling the shocks. You don't see that. I mean, all this stuff that they did for the front and rear suspension, it's amazing. The looks of this car, it looks out of this world. You do not see SUVs like that nowadays. So this is the cool factor on this car is just like off the chart. The rear spoiler is really, really nice. And everything is purpose built. This is form follows function. So the Mitsubishi engineers, kudos to them. They just wanted to dominate the car racing. So that's one of the factors that went into production of this car. And they did just that. I mean, they did a clean sweep, first, second, third. If you're looking for one of these cars, make sure to snatch one now. If you can get it imported, or if there's one available, or bring your trailer or cars and bids, get it now, because the prices of these things will definitely go up because of the history and heritage attached to these cars. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Rad Rides covering this beautiful 1997 Mitsubishi Pajero Evolution. Make sure to check out our future episodes that we'll have coming for you. And as usual, make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you like our episodes. Until the next time that we have another unique and special vehicle for you. Have a good one.